What's up, F1 America fans? We're back. It was post Qatar race. And guys, we had a new world champion crowned over the weekend. No, I'm not talking about Max Verstappen. I'm talking about McLaren's pit stop, new world record.
I did see that. That was actually really impressive.
Yeah.
Was it 1.8?
It was 1.8.
That was gnarly.
1.8. So
I want to know how they count that because I feel like it was a long 1.8 seconds.
So yeah, congrats Lando Norris and McLaren for knocking Red Bull off of the world record status.
Any chance you get, take a jab.
Right. However, Max Verstappen was also crowned world champion 3 times in a row. You know, the first one's controversial. We don't get into that on this channel. But nobody
Not the take.
Nobody is denying his, superior performance this season. Red Bull really brought him a fantastic car. No denying that he's 100% world champ this year.
Actually, that kind of brings on the topic I wanted to talk about. So the 2-part portion here, right? So Lewis Hamilton, when asked like, "Oh, do you consider him one of the greats?" He's like, "No, he's not one of the greats," right? I think that's kind of controversial. I think Lewis might be a little bit bitter, right? Just because he's not competing right now. And then also that one title obviously would have knocked him down from being the most world titles.
Yeah.
But the one thing I will say, kind of in comparison to like motocross and stuff like that, Ricky Carmichael is the GOAT of motocross, right? The most outdoor titles and just an absolute domination of the sport. But one thing I will say that made me start thinking, everybody will admit that James Stewart is the fastest guy on a dirt bike. So I'd almost go as far as to say at this point in time, I would think Max is maybe the fastest F1 driver of all time. I'd go
maybe currently.
Yeah, well, in every era is different.
Up to current, right?
Yeah, up to current. Yeah, who knows? In 5 years, we could get the new Jet Lawrence, right? That comes along, and he's light years and just abnormally like natural talent. But I think up to this point in time, Max has definitely showed the most dominant, fastest speed, raw speed. I know the car has to do a lot with that versus like say somebody on a dirt bike, but up till this point in time, like nobody's been this far ahead.
I think this dominating, this consistent
every weekend,
right? Like even when Lewis was miles above people, it wasn't this consistent. It wasn't this. I mean, Max just broke the record for all-time races, consecutive races.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So I think that's what's really interesting. I mean, and then Lewis during his dominant time, like he was still battling for people. Like he'd have a dominant race, but then he'd still like 1 weekend later he'd finish third,
right?
And then the next weekend he'd be back in first, or
I'd say he was always really consistent, right? Yeah. Really, like, I mean, over his career, he's got more wins than most the entire field, or like some constructors teams
for sure,
all combined, right? So he's had like obviously huge success, but he's had a really long career too.
Yeah, in a long and dominant career, right? Like Alonso's been there just as long, or longer, but not nearly as competitive.
Yeah.
Now this year, it's kind of nice to see him revamp it, but like, so you could go as far as to say like Schumacher, or Lewis are definitely the GOATs, right?
100%.
You could probably go interchangeable on who is the GOAT, who isn't the GOAT.
Well, and I think that's what, if we think about the context of like one of the greats, I think Max is really fucking good, especially currently. I think one of the greats is longevity, right? He hasn't been in the sport long enough compared to the greats.
So what about this though? Say Max goes on just a 5-year run of just winning everything, right? And he racks up 5 titles back to back to back. And then he's like, all right, I'm bored, I'm over it, I'm going. Do you not consider him one of the greats?
I would say, yeah.
I think he's on track to
things like that. 100%. Well, so here's another record that could potentially be broken. Another one of Lewis's records that could be broken this year by Oscar Piastri.
I was going to talk about those too.
Right. So most points made in your debut season.
Yeah.
But how many more races do we have now than we did back in 2007?
True. Yeah. They might have only been doing 12 races. Now we're doing 22, 23.
Right. So yes, it's a record. Yes, they're meant to be broken. Yes, it's cool to see, but also trying to compare and contrast a little bit to Lewis he also scored, like he was second in the championship, his rookie season. So he was winning races. He was finishing on podiums, consistently throughout the whole season, not just here or there.
How much do you think that? Well, obviously, a lot of it has to do with the car, right? Because like if you would have put Lewis in the Williams of the day back then, he obviously wouldn't have been. He would have been driving good still, but not been there. So it's like, and same thing with Oscar. Like Oscar is definitely performing and living up. I'd say living up to the hype now.
Yeah,
the beginning of the season, no, forget about it.
But McLaren didn't give him a car, right? So that
yeah,
I think that just exactly proves your point as to so much of it is really about the car development and the team's progression. Sure, the driver still has to drive it. Right? I mean, look at the difference between Max and Checo right now.
Right.
That could be. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. Do you think that could be potentially because we've heard in the past how Red Bull tends to develop their car for Max, right? So let's say they both have the same car in the beginning of the season.
Right.
They're both doing really, really well. They don't listen to Checo's feedback and they just give Max the car that he wants. And now all of a sudden the gap starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I mean,
think that maybe is what's going on, or do we think Checo's just kind of shit in the bed?
I think it's a combination of things, right? I think, and I think I've talked about this in previous episodes. It's kind of ignorant or arrogant for the team to not develop the car for Checo, because then you're just hurting yourself at the end of the day, regardless who the driver is. So I'm curious if they did this before Max, though. Like for Seb, were they gearing the car solely for Seb, or was it okay? Seb and Daniel are driving the car; they both have equal input, but Daniel was just as competitive in that version of the car versus today's version of the car.
I just think the difference is Max has a very unorthodox driving style,
for sure.
So where maybe let's say Seb and Daniel could kind of agree, on like car development.
Like, I know why you want the back end to pivot right there. I understand why you wanted to do that.
And I can race that too, right? Yeah. Like, I can make that happen, instead of like, oh man, this is so different than my natural driving style.
And I think it's going to end up hurting Red Bull in the long run, just taking a wild guess, by setting the car solely up for Max, because then once Max is gone, or regardless whether he leaves, he stays with Red Bull forever, or the new kid comes in, then what are they going to do? Now they got to start from like ground zero, to try to develop a whole new car, versus when you got a guy like, you have two guys that are fast, whether it's Daniel and Max, Sergio and Max, whatever have you. Unless you develop the car together, I think he just has Max is the golden goose right now, and he has this really weird driving style, and it's really cool, and he's stupid fast, but not everybody can drive that way. It's like taking like your program that you built for somebody that's trying to gain weight and be an athlete, but then you try to apply it to a person trying to weight loss program. Yeah, they're going to see some benefits, but eventually it's going to run out, and they're not going to like it. So at the end of the day, what are you gonna do? So I'm curious to see what that does. I wish I could fast forward or time jump and just see kind of, in 5 years, where's Max at? What's Red Bull doing? And then is Red Bull back to being a mid-pack people? Or I don't think that'll ever happen. I think Red Bull will always be like a title contender at this point. I think they've solidified themselves. I think it'll always be Mercedes is going to be up there. Red Bull will always be up there. Now you got maybe the McLarens might make it a 3-car battle now, depending on how next year
Hopefully
goes.
Ferrari can start picking things up.
If Ferrari can too, and make it like a 4 or 5-car battle with maybe Aston Martin kind of challenging occasionally, that'd be great.
I'm curious to see. I really don't know the future of Aston Martin. Now there's rumors that Lawrence is going to sell the team, potentially, because this is my theory, is because
don't control your dog.
Yeah, seriously. So my theory on Aston Martin and all of that is really, oh my god,
I think that's is that your dog or is that the other dog?
No, Jen's got a client. So it's definitely
sidebar. We'll edit that out. No, just kidding. It's raw.
It might
do everything raw here.
I say I'm gonna edit, and I'm just throwing it in. I edit for like a few hours. I'm like, I'm 20 minutes into an hour video. Nah, fuck it. We'll just post it.
That explains why our views are shitty. Just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah,
dude, editing sucks. When I was doing
you understand now. You understand now.
I'm doing basic editing. Like I'm just clipping stuff together. I'm not like adding up audio and stuff like that.
Yeah, which also I know we've been getting good feedback from you guys, the fans, which is perfect, because that's how we're going to make this channel better for you guys that actually watch. it's been really difficult for us to be able to use any F1 footage. Literally, I've clipped 3-second little tiny clips. I've reversed the image. I've done all of this stuff. It still gets flagged. I've even screen recorded so that my metadata was not the data from, YouTube. It still caught it, whatever F1 is doing.
They hate us.
They just don't want anybody using their stuff, even if it's technically legal for fair use on YouTube. So we don't have the money to really battle them right now. So we're working some other kind of workarounds. I think technically, because I'm following the rules, I probably could petition and do that, but it might go to court. It might do all
on my page. I petition everything.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm like working on some other just workarounds to get you guys some footage, so it's not just us talking all the time. But that's kind of that's where it's at. It's really difficult to actually be able to use F1 footage. But we're doing our best, and hopefully one day we can grow the channel big enough to where we can actually just buy rights to be able to use their shit. So
that said,
talk about Aston Martin.
We were talking about Aston.
So my theory now on Aston Martin and Lawrence Stroll is, I think, he's getting pressure for the team to be moving forward, right? There's a huge gap between Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. And I think it's obvious that Lance probably wouldn't have a drive if his dad wasn't the owner of the company. So the theory is like, maybe he's going to sell the company because he doesn't want to can his son, or they're both going to be kind of out at the same time. I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd say to challenge that, to be playing devil's advocate, is look at Latifi. He was around a lot longer than he should have been. In like 3 generations of shitty cars. And somehow he was here as long as he was.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, Lance has really matured as a driver. I mean, we saw him push his mechanic or his trainer the past weekend, but it seemed like everybody was struggling.
Yeah, that clip.
Yeah, you're not on Instagram now, so
sorry, I deleted it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a money grab. People want to shell the money out. The team wants to get all the money that they can. So, or vice versa. Lawrence would be like, "Oh, F1's blowing up. Now I can make money on this F1 team that I bought a couple years ago."
Yeah.
I think Lance is at a stalemate right now with his progression in the sport. Like, I think he's definitely progressed over the years. He's not a Latifi, and he's definitely beating some guys in the field, but he's also not, like you said, he's not. You can only give credit to experience for so long. Lance has been around enough to have enough race experience that he should be
he's far from a rookie now.
Yeah, he should be close, maybe not on Fernando's heels, but he should have confidence enough to drive the car. He should be with Pierre. He should be with Ocon. Like, he should be with that whole group of guys, even Yuki, which I think he does beat Yuki most of the time, but Yuki's in a shitbox. So, and not that I'm defending Yuki, but
no, but he also, the Aston Martin is at this stage miles ahead of like a Haas, but yet, he's kind of qualifying in the
Haas group,
and Alphas. And
look at Haas, though. They have a good hot one-lap speed for sure. Like, Nico or K-Mag gets in the Q3 like half the time. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea, honestly, what's going to happen with that. I think it could be just a shocker. Like, at the end of the year, be like, oh, now it's turning into, not Audi, but, I don't know, Jaguar Racing or whatever, versus Aston Martin, or maybe it stays Aston Martin, but it's a totally different brand. Like, I heard, I think Raina told me that Adidas and Tommy Hilfiger. I don't know Tommy Hilfiger. Yeah. Adidas and Hugo Boss are battling for the sponsorship for AlphaTauri, which I was like, Adidas, really? Of all the places?
Yeah, I know.
So I don't know. Hopefully, AlphaTauri has a good car next year, which it would be good for DR and Yuki, which I heard they're supposed to get this year's Red Bull car.
But I don't know how all those rules work.
Well, at the same time, though, by the time at the beginning of the year next year, they'll start off good and then they'll go to shit. So
yeah. I mean, because even there's going to be some rule changes for next season too, and so if they don't apply those very well, the car could be just as bad as Alpha is now. Yeah, and then I guess actually no. Before we jump into full blown Checo talk, let's talk about. I mean, not much to touch on the race. Like Qatar. There was really exhausting for the drivers.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not gonna like say it was easy, right? It's super strenuous. They do go through some G's in some corners, crazy stuff. and it's definitely physical. I'm not saying it's not physical, right? But it's 85 degrees, 90 degrees, and 70% humidity. That's what motocross guys deal with on a weekend in the summer. Like, go to RedBull, it's 97 degrees and like 65% humidity, and we do that every weekend for 12 weekends straight. So it's just funny to see these guys come off the track like smoked. And I think Max is definitely, I don't think he was hurting. Like, he didn't look like he was definitely sweating. Like, he wasn't like, oh yeah, I just jumped out of the shower. But there's definitely some guys, I don't know if they were like playing into it or if they were like totally just completely gassed. And it's kind of funny to see like the fitness level, and you're like, oh, well, so-and-so isn't really in that good of a shape as you think he would be.
Well, and I think like Logan Sargent comes to mind, right? Having to actually quit the race. But he was like, he had the flu like a couple days earlier. So he was already not feeling well. And then I guess you add that onto it. But then it's like you talk like Alcon threw up in his mouth on last lap 15.
Yeah, I'm like, that you barely even were in the race. You weren't even in like,
that's like less than the sprint even, you know. So it was like, wow, like
Logan. The one thing that bugs me about Logan is like, they're like, just bring it in if you need to bring it in, and then he's like, no, I can do it. And then literally 2 laps later, he's like, I don't feel good.
Yeah. And
I'm like, bro, like, you were fine, okay, cool, like, drive it out, but then you look like an idiot now that you pulled off. Like, no offense to like Logan,
how about David Cuthart?
What is his
comment?
I think I remember seeing it somewhere, but I don't know.
Saying like, well, at least the car will come in undamaged.
Yeah, I do remember that, actually.
Like,
all right, let's give him a break though. He's not as bad as Mazepin, okay?
Yeah, or Latifi, right?
Way worse. Latifi was worse. As much as I hate to say it, Mick was fucking worse than Logan. Logan's had what, 3 bad crashes this year?
Yeah,
I think Mazepin was crashing every other race,
or every race, every other practice. Like, he was, dude, the kid destroyed every car.
What about Alonso drifting across the sand and then saves it, gets back on the track, and just keeps rolling like no big deal?
Well, it kind of came back unsafe, right?
I don't know, sir. I don't think it was unsafe.
Like, he totally cut across the whole track.
Well, no, because like the S comes back like this, and he goes out to the safety lane, and he comes up the side, and he got back on the track. Like, yeah, he wasn't doing mock Jesus by that time, but he was back on the track before anybody was around him. Did he end up getting a penalty for that?
I'm not, I don't.
I remember seeing him under review.
But
I was like, you couldn't give him. What is he supposed to do? Stop and wait? Like,
well, he kind of can't. Well, I don't know. It's
maybe they're worried about the rocks flying off. I don't know. I don't think it was.
I think he went all the way across the track when he came on, though. He didn't just come on right. He like went all the way to the other side.
Well, he kind of had to, because that's where the safety lane was. If you would have tried to turn around, he would have got stuck. So he just carried he was smart. He carried his momentum across the sand, a gravel pit.
Yeah.
Then got to the runoff, and then like where the tow truck would come out, and then drove along that. So yeah, technically he cut maybe a corner and 2 corners.
Well, no, I think when he got back on the track, he cut across the entire track. Like, instead of he ran off,
right,
and he was coming on, instead of just coming here, he
like hugging the right, like hugging the right side or whatever.
Right. I think
and then he just got back into the back into the lane. I didn't think anybody was that close to him, but I can't remember. He might have been there.
It was close enough.
Was it close enough? Or like close enough to be like, oh shit.
Yeah. Because I think there was 2 right there. I forget which ones.
I think it was Alcon
and
or something. Alcon and somebody else, but I don't remember who the second car was. Yeah, I mean, this weekend was boring, obviously, for the sake of Max. He just walked away with it. And then it was actually funny, though. I was really surprised that Christian was like, oh yeah, pick up the pace a little bit. And I was like,
that was really interesting. I feel like that's the first time we've heard that all season.
Yeah, like,
even Max was like, what?
What are you talking about? Like, he was managing like a 10-second lead like the whole race.
Totally.
And I don't know if Christian's getting uncomfortable, like with McLaren's being lurking back there, or they were worried about tires. What was with the rule?
It could have been braking too. Sometimes they need to get a little bit faster to cool the brakes more. I don't know. So,
what was with the tire rule? What was that about? Like, they couldn't go, like, they had to go a certain laps, and like they had to pit on that lap. So you knew exactly when everybody was pitting. It was stupid.
So they basically had to, for safety reasons, Pirelli had to put a lap limit on the tire, and it was a lot earlier than they anticipated because those curbs were a lot more nasty.
Abrasive,
because they brought the track in a little bit, right?
Yeah.
For like the track limit stuff. And I think they redid the curbs, and the curbs were like really nasty. And so because of that, with the load on them and the curbs being a little bit more intense, they just safety wise were not going to hold up. And so that's why they put that lap limit on those.
I think Pirelli should just be like, hey, here's your window. You could go 15 to 22 laps. If you go over that, that's on you.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Like, they probably get like F1 probably sues them or something. If something, you know what I mean? Like F1's kind of like that. So who really knows?
Like when that happened with Max and Stroll a couple years ago.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Like,
I just think, like, because they made the race really. So you knew everybody was doing, like, you knew what they were doing. So that was kind of annoying. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, good for McLaren, 2-3.
Yeah.
I think Lando's obviously a little buttered in a way. Obviously, I think getting the fastest pit stop helped him recover a little bit. But
I know, although I don't think his name really goes on it, right? I think it's McLaren.
Yeah, it's McLaren as a team.
Take that.
But yeah, I mean, I think Lando. I think Lando should just went and battle for position at that point. Not be like, hey, tell him to move. I think that's what's stupid with all the teams. It doesn't matter who it is.
Mm-hmm.
It could be McLaren, it could be RedBull.
Yeah, because he had clear pace, especially at that point. Like maybe he kind of dropped off, but I don't know if he really actually dropped off or he just kind of backed off because he's like, well, what's the fucking point?
Yeah, well, I mean, overdrive.
But then I don't know. Look at Mercedes. Let them race. Maybe like I don't know.
I forgot that was last weekend. Yeah, we didn't talk about that. I've got a lot of comments and I got a lot of angry Instagram people at me because I commented on somebody's thing, and all these keyboard warriors don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So sorry, we might need to bleep that out. But these guys that jump on the computer and talk about, oh, you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to racing. Yes, I know what I'm talking about. I have 20 years of racing under my belt of all different nature. That was a 50-50 corner. Like Lewis's experience, he probably should have stuck it out a little bit more. Yes, George was really close to Max, but he could have just tucked in and stayed right where he was at and stayed right on like Max's left rear and just kind of tucked, and they could have went too wide until somebody backs out coming out of the corner. And then instead Lewis is out of the race. So I don't know. I think
first off, what was your comment?
I said that that's exactly what I said. I was like, it's a 50-50 corner. Lewis, knowing what he knows, like probably should have stayed too wide through the corner. George should have tucked in a little bit right, or they were both going for it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think it was a racing incident, right?
Yeah, 100% racing incident. There was nobody 100% at fault.
Yeah,
I think the only reason why Lewis apologized to stay in everybody's good graces and be the mature person at the end of the day, Lewis for a fact does not want to go apologize. Lewis does not need to go apologize. If anything, George needs to be apologizing to Lewis. As much as I don't like Lewis Hamilton, like I'm not a fan of him. That was 100% a racing in corner, and if I was his teammate, I wouldn't have said shit to him. Vice versa, and I would not expect him to say anything to me. I'm like, don't talk to me for a week. We'll see you at next weekend's race.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm a fucking Lewis fanboy.
Yeah.
I think it was great. Like he apologized, great. Like I don't necessarily think he was at fault.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
that's probably one time all year we'll agree.
Right. Look, I mean, he was ahead in the corner, right?
Yeah.
Did he give him enough space? No, he didn't. Why was George pushing him off the track going down the straight? They're on two different tire strategies.
Because what was medium, one's hard?
No, one was medium, one was soft. Lewis was on soft, trying to get ahead.
Right.
Yeah. George fucking totally covers him off and almost pushes him off the track on the straight.
I remember that. I was like, "Cool, that was aggressive for your teammate,
dude." Right on, hard tire.
If he hadn't have done that, like for sure, Lewis would have been in the corner first because he would just blew.
I mean, look, Lewis was in the corner first either way.
Yeah.
So like Lewis would have been a full car length ahead of him and could have, you know what I mean? Which I think he maybe thought that he was further ahead.
Lewis probably thought he was clear, and I guarantee you, George was either in his blind spot or he could barely see him. And also, once you're mid corner, you're not thinking about like what's here. Like you're just thinking corner. And I guarantee
George couldn't go anywhere because Max was right on his other
like
side.
this, so he didn't even think about Lewis is there. So the only thing he saw was like, oh, I'm getting kind of close to Max. I'm just going to be precautious and go out, and he clips him. So it's like, how actually, I don't think George got a penalty for causing a collision.
No, he didn't.
Which is convenient. Really convenient, because anybody else, you breathe on somebody.
I think because it's the first corner.
I've seen how many races this year have we seen people take each other out in the first corner and they get a. I'm pretty sure Ocon at Australia got a penalty for that.
Was that also?
So it's FIA again, not enforcing the rules consistently. They've been way better this year, I will say that. But George caused a collision by the book. He hit another car. made him go off the track. He did cause a collision
But then Lewis takes responsibility for it.
after the race. Yeah. But I mean, at that point, regardless who takes responsibility for it,
Yeah.
that should be causing a collision. You should get a 5-second penalty because that's what everybody else has got. I think I've seen a 10-second one before. So FIA bullshit. That's my rant of the So yeah, I forgot about that. That was this weekend. So yeah, That was 50 at the end of the day. It was 50-50 corner. Like,
caused Lewis to lose his points streak for this season.
Was he in the points every race until
his
this point?
Yep, his run of winning or getting points every single race.
We'll say I was impressed. As much as George is an idiot, I was impressed with the drive back.
I thought
he ended up
really,
landing like 16th or something like that, and then he came back from, or he was pretty buried.
And he came back for what?
Because I think he had damage. Did he have damage? I think he had damage.
I think they had to change his front wing, and that, but I don't think other than that he had any.
That wasn't bad.
No.
And then obviously with that incident, he went really wide in that corner. Everybody goes by him. So it also happened on the first lap. So if you're on a factory team, I would expect you to be in the points.
I thought they both. I didn't realize that originally after it happened that George was still in the race. I thought they were both out. And I was thinking, I'm glad I didn't pick them for fantasy. But after the sprint race, I was going, God, I should have taken them for fantasy, right? So again, sprint race weekend giving us a lot more action.
I'm curious what they'll be like this weekend at that track, because that track's really fast. I don't know how Mercedes will do there. I think McLaren will probably do really well. Williams will probably do really well. Red Bull obviously will do well.
Mercedes has just been really kind of finicky, right? It's like they either can progress for the weekend or they can't.
I think they're better at that tighter stuff, like the turning, carrying the speed into the corner. They're not fast in a straight line from what I see. Like any of the high speed track, like really high speed tracks, like they get going, but they're not challenging for anything. Like this weekend was kind of like a hybrid track. It had a lot of turns, but it had some straights.
Yeah, they've been a little bit better in this past season of kind of the slower cornering and keeping that downforce and being, versus the high speed stuff for sure. Where I think maybe in the past they were better at the high speed, right? They were always like topping the speed traps and so I think it'll be kind of interesting to see Alex Albon and the Williams and see their top speed if they're able to pull something out of the midfield. Although Coda does have that really tricky
tight section, out of the first, it's like the second corner.
There's the first left, and then you go down into
right,
and then chicane, and then come up, and it's right into that. Which I know like driving the game is really difficult.
To do it consistently is different. I'm sure the G's are gnarly.
I always get track limits.
Well, speaking of Mercedes and Lewis and all that, so going into like the battle for second, Checo is on the
kind of on the chopping block.
I was couldn't figure out what I was trying to say, but he's on the chopping block. As of today, that they basically are giving him an ultimatum if he doesn't finish second in the points, like he's canned. So I mean, and then that means DR is back in Red Bull, which is sick.
We all want to see that, right? I know we love him on this channel. That's one racer we both just.
I think he belongs at Red Bull. I mean, imagine you could have a power couple next year if DR is healthy and gets in the car, and we already know he was doing some testing and he was just as fast as he was on the front row. So it'd be, I mean, as much as you hate to see it, it'd be Red Bull lockout all next year in theory. If DR gets on the Red Bull game, they don't botch the car.
Crash each other, right? Like I think it'll be interesting because like I even had texted you this, is like Max driving now is much different than Max driving 3 years ago. Right. 4 years ago when he was really hot-headed. I think he still has it in there. I think he just hasn't been pressured enough.
For sure.
So I think, if I think Checo would have progressed with him through the mid part of the season and they were actually battling for 1-2, I think we would find more of his temper and more of his stuff. And even because look at last year, we saw the two of them having a lot of discrepancies and Max was still beginning of this year ahead, right? And now
that's also another reason why I want DR. That's why I kind of want Checo. I never want bad for somebody, and somebody also said what happens to Checo if he doesn't finish that? There's no real reason for somebody to keep him, unless he goes to Williams, because that's
the only hard part is he's a good driver.
No, for sure.
So it would be kind of a shame to see him not on the grid,
right?
When you have let's say, other people who really aren't performing very well,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So, but we thought he was potentially out of a drive 2 years ago, and now Red Bull picked him up.
Get rid of Lance, send him over to Aston Martin.
Right.
Put DR in there. Oof,
Okay, so that would also be interesting because Checo, right? So Aston Martin used to be Racing Point.
Yeah.
And it used to be Lance and Checo at Racing Point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Would they take him back? Right? They probably would.
I would think.
They probably would.
I don't know. I have a feeling that Checo's just going to keep frazzling apart. I don't know. It doesn't. Like Texas, he should be a no-brainer second place for him. Mexico, it should be a top 3 for sure. Brazil, he struggled that last year, so I'll just go as far as to say he'll struggle at Brazil this year. Maybe just I don't think the Red Bull's good in that tight, windy shit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think, and then that leads open the door. I think Lewis should keep fighting for everything he can, right? Like I don't know what he finished points last year. Was third?
Oh man,
no, it was like maybe top 5, maybe.
Yeah, it was definitely top 5, but it wasn't.
It wasn't top 3, right?
But
no, because Leclerc got 3rd or whatever. Or
yeah.
no, 2nd. Leclerc got 2nd and Checo got 3rd because the whole points issue at Brazil with Checo and Max, because Max didn't want to pull out.
Right, exactly.
So,
that's right.
You know, Checo loses it, finishes 3rd. I don't know how close they are, but I think Lewis, because that's the only thing Lewis really has to fight for, but I'm sure Lewis doesn't want to hand over 2nd place to anybody.
No, and we've seen Lewis finally again this year have more of that fight. He's driving kind of like Lewis. Like I felt like last year,
it's kind of sorry.
This didn't look like Lewis. He didn't act like Lewis.
Yeah, I think he gave up before because he knew his car was shit, and he was like, "Why am I going to try?"
Right, and I think that's what we saw as fans. I think he was still working to develop the car.
Yeah,
I think he just was kind of like, I mean, dude, you won how many? It's got to be tough to be kind of a midfield, they're kind of a midfield car last year for most of the season,
For sure.
And it's got to be frustrating to be used to winning and things coming really easy to then we're making these changes and they're not doing good.
They're not doing what we expect them to do.
So,
or you're not making, maybe you're making gains, but not the gains. You're expecting like 2 to 3 seconds. You're getting half a second.
Right.
And you're like, bro, this ain't doing
competitors are getting those.
This ain't doing anything. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. As much as I think Checo's a good guy, but at the same time, I don't mind if he messes up and Daniel ends up at the Red Bull.
Yeah, I don't think. I
mean, Daniel's got to
like Daniel, right?
So
I am nervous for Daniel to go to Red Bull and race Max in Max's car because I think even Daniel's going to have a hard time keeping up with him, and then that means Daniel's career's over. That's what I'm nervous about.
Let's be honest though, like how much longer do you think Daniel has? Do you think he's going to be in Alonso? Like I'd rather give him.
You're right.
I'd rather give him a shot at the top tier team and let him go out like swinging.
Yeah.
Than a cool year stuck at
AlphaTauri.
You're going to be an AlphaTauri, and then you'll bounce around. Maybe not Williams, but you go to Alfa Romeo and you end up like Bottas. Like, no offense, Bottas, your mullet's great, but like,
dude, he's
like going
living the life.
I will say last weekend they drove really well. They were like totally off the radar, and both of them were in the top 10. I was like, holy shit! So I was stoked for that, and I didn't even think about picking them. So sleeper pick, but yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I would rather Danny have the chance to like just go balls to the wall and like try to send it, and then if he's done, he's done. Or if he goes to like a lower team, but look at Haas, like he could probably drive forever if he wanted to be on a Haas team, because Haas is sticking with the same driver lineup because they don't want to wreck cars.
Yeah, I mean, and those guys have proven to be obviously like veterans, and I think they're getting along well. When you're not really competing for those top spots.
Yeah.
I don't think they have to compete, for their drive. Right. So even, we know they had past history, right? But then I think now they're driving better as a duo than even Grosjean and Magnussen.
Oh yeah, they're probably feeding off each other, like talking about car setup. They're probably trying to like, okay, like how do you feel here? Do you feel better there? How do you were faster in that sector?
Well, and it's interesting to see like Nico's like really fast qualifying, and then Kevin's got just like great race pace.
Yeah, they almost have kind of the best of both worlds, except just they can't. So like they
get both of them together.
Yeah, they can't. get them both in Q3, or at least like Haas is getting the recognition in Q3, and then K-Mag's getting the recognition during the race in a way.
Yeah.
But they both need a little bit more, and I'm sure Steiner's like kind of pushing them, but
yeah.
But okay, so check this out. So what if Checo shits the bed, right? Goes to third. DR goes to Red Bull. Then do they just bump Checo down to AlphaTauri?
No.
Or do they can him all together and then they move Liam up?
Yeah, because look at I mean, honestly, do you think Checo won? Like, does Checo feel comfortable there? Like, how much racist shit has come out towards him in the last? No, but for real. You know what I mean?
Is it racist or is it stereotypical?
It's racist.
Well, and also look at who's it? Helmet?
Yeah, Helmet Marko. That's what I'm talking about.
Let's make a comment about that. I heard that Christian's trying to get rid of Helmet.
Really?
I saw something that said that Christian's been trying to get rid of him or something like that, along those lines.
I mean,
so that may, as much as you think that Christian's just Satan in the F1 world, maybe he's really trying to get rid of the true underworld lord, which is Helmet Marko.
Maybe.
Does he? I mean, dude, think about it though. Okay, it's like saying like, have you ever met like your friend's grandparents, or maybe your grandparents are like this? I know my great grandparents are like this. I didn't get to experience it, but my grandma tells me stories all the time. That I guess my great grandparents were like low key racist, right? So like, I'm sure Helmet came from that same era, right?
Oh yeah.
And so he's just like, oh god, I want to say so much, but I can't like say it like in a non like. Yeah, I'm trying to
careful.
I want to say it in like
you edited
just like an example.
You never edited anything. You just totally
an example sake, right? Like it's just like saying like if Helmet were to say like, oh yeah, Checo would make a great gardener. Yeah, it's technically racist.
Yeah,
but it's just like the world he grew up in, and like that's and obviously he's from a totally different part of the world, but that would be like us saying something like that, right? So is Helmet is he really like racist, or is that just the era he's in, like the time zone he's stuck in?
Yeah, but
I don't know. I'm not defending Helmet at all. Yeah, I don't like the fucking guy.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it's racist for sure, but it used to be justifiable to be able to say stuff like that. Yeah. Where now we live in a world where you just don't.
Which
right?
Why doesn't well actually wasn't Helmet the one that got in trouble for saying some shit about Lewis too? At some point, like a year ago or something like that?
Yes, he did, but also Nelson Piquet did.
That's Max's baby mama's dad, right?
Grandfather.
Yeah. Or his grandfather? Or that was his father.
Oh, maybe it is. Yeah, maybe it is her dad. But yeah.
So I mean, it's. I think
the racism runs deep in Red Bull.
So like, this how I look at it, right? Like, you can choose to like feed into it, right? Like, I'm sure it sucks, and I'm sure Checo's dad doesn't like it. I'm sure Checo doesn't like it. But at the end of the day, the only thing you can do is drive the wheels off the fucking car and just tell them like go eat a bag of dicks. That being said, like you just choose to deal. Like, you can't change what they're gonna say or what they're gonna do. I think like you can't get butthurt about it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna go shake hands with Helmet. Like, I can give a fuck if I ever talk to that guy.
Right.
But like, I can't control what he does, and that doesn't mean Red Bull. We need a. I don't even know how we got on this topic.
I don't know, but let's go with it.
Oh, is Checo happy? Yeah, that's what it was. Is Checo happy? Red Bull's racist. Blah 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 blah. I'm sure if Checo's like, they're like, hey, like you didn't perform to your end of the deal, but we'll give you a drive in AlphaTauri. Is he gonna say no? I think he wants to keep racing cars.
Well, then dealing with AlphaTauri is going to be better than dealing with Red Bull.
Yeah,
as a driver.
Like you're a part of Red Bull, but you're not.
Yeah. So I mean, look at Pierre, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously he's not there now, but he was driving so much better for them, and the pressure, and I mean their whole drives, their team is all different. Right? It's different people. It's
different vibe.
So it's sure it's a sister team. It's still under the Red Bull umbrella, but it's completely different. So I don't know.
I think, well, then if they don't have Liam, or if they don't have Checo, I'm assuming Liam takes that spot, right? Which I think he definitely deserves a ride. Like he was just, I mean, in the F1 twins or girls, I don't know what their name are, Mia and whatever on Instagram. She did some analysis of like who was faster, was Yuki faster, was Liam. At the end of the day, regardless of breaking it down to a spreadsheet, like Liam performed really well for his minimal time in an F1 car.
At some of the most difficult tracks, difficult conditions, and I mean, his debut was fucking rain, dry. Oh,
and I think he drove like, right? I mean, just as good as much as I hate to say it, just as good as Daniel did in his first day in the car.
Yeah,
He
he drove
car.
fantastic. I think that he really deserves.
Like, if you're going to be a mid-pack guy,
I would like to see that.
If you're going to be a mid-pack guy, he deserves to be a mid-pack guy all day long. Is he
Yeah.
winning? Is he going to go win races? Is he going to go get points? I don't know about that. But like, if he's going to be in a mid-pack team,
I think he showed a better debut than McLaren.
Oh, for sure. Well, the only thing I'd say is,
what's his name?
DeVries?
No. Oh, definitely better than DeVries, unfortunately.
Oscar?
Yeah, I think he had a better debut than Oscar.
So I would say
Oscar had a really slow start.
The only person
did too.
That's done a fill-in ride better than Liam, I would say, for never being in a car, was probably DeVries. But DeVries was in the tip-top car when he did that. So it's like, you would like, he got points. So yeah. Liam didn't get points. So at the end of the day, like,
but wasn't he like 11? Like, he was like 1 away from points or something.
Yeah, no, Liam did great. Liam was super close. Like, he was 12th or 11th. So
yeah, he did real well.
In comparison, like, the only person that I've seen that does a fill-in ride that gets in the points was DeVries, and then Verizon, whatever his name is, and then I'm trying to think, who's the Italian stallion? Antonio Giovinazzi. He did a fill-in ride once.
Oh yeah,
but he didn't do that good. And then also Antonio Giovinazzi drove all year long, and I don't think he got in the points once.
Yeah, for Alpha.
Maybe twice. Maybe he got in the points once and he had like 2 points all season. Because of an accident or something like that. So I think Liam deserves a ride based on just his performance in there. But is he gonna want to go to a drive of like Williams?
Is he a Red Bull driver?
I'm pretty sure he is.
Yeah.
I know he's the reserve driver.
Okay.
And obviously that's what he took. And I'm pretty sure he's staying there for next year as a reserve driver, even though he wants to go drive.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, we have a lot of young drivers that are very talented, but those race seats don't pop up very often.
No,
you know, so we're kind of in this era right now where the OGs are staying, right? Lewis, I mean, even Seb stayed for a really long time, right? Fernando is staying, right? Like, so these OGs in the sport who've been there for 20 years now,
which kind of sucks,
you know,
because like, at least with like, if you look at like the motocross side of things, like the older you get, you can't really be that, like, you're normally not that good or like that long. Like, you normally hit like a window of like, hey, I'm good for these like 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then I start to taper off really bad. But you got the Fernandos that are still battling for podiums, the Lewises that can still, like, he's been around forever but can still battle for a win. Seb, who, if he was in a good enough car, like, he was still, obviously he had a couple wins here and there, or had a couple podiums, I should say. So it's like, it's kind of a shitty time for a spectator, because like, these guys are just like, it's like the mafia days. It's like these guys are just running the shit, and you're just like, okay, can we like switch it up,
get some young blood?
Yeah, like,
but then I mean, you know, sometimes you get some of those young guys in and they just they can't hack it.
No, for sure. And like, you kind of have to find that balance, right? Like, they should almost take, like, everybody gets a senior guy and everybody gets a new guy. And that's how.
Well, it's kind of the theory. Like,
this year, that's how it's been.
That's kind of how it's been the last couple of years. Is because it wasn't like that. It was like, let's take the young guys, right? I feel like when Lewis started coming up, and I didn't watch it as consistent as I do now,
right?
But I felt like kind of at that era, it was bringing those guys in, like.
The younger
it was
crowd.
Like, if you were first or second in Formula 2, you usually had a ride.
Yeah.
Right. Or maybe you had 2 seasons and you won both, and then you got a ride for sure. Right. So stuff like that. And now you're having, you know, F2 champs not even getting a drive.
So Carlos, I will say, on a pod or interview, said something really sick, which would be really cool for, I think, do it for all sprint weekends, because it'd make it really sick for the racing. But take your sprint qualifying and flip it by champion order. So it's not like Max can go win every sprint qualifier and then go lead every race. Obviously, he didn't 2 weeks ago when McLaren did it. But flip the order, so all your fastest guys or your championship guys are in the back, and it makes them work to come through the field.
Well, that's what they do in F2.
Is that okay? I didn't know they did that in F2. So like, I've seen it in other forms of racing.
So if I'm correct, F2 every weekend is a sprint weekend.
There you go.
I think that's where F1 got the idea to start doing it, but they do reverse order for the race and the sprint. So it was like last year where the sprint set the grid, but they do a reverse grid for Formula 2.
Yeah, see, that's sick, because that would make the racing like in just the sprint or in the racing too. F1, F2.
Well, no, so you qualify for the sprint.
Right.
And
you
then
reverse grid order
and then
for the sprint.
reverse grid order after the sprint race. So whatever you finish during the sprint is reverse grid order for the actual race.
Okay. So, well, that'd make it even better too. I think it'd make the racing so much better and make not just Max like, cool, Max whole shots and leads the rest of the race. And he drops the 5th for a pit stop and then he goes right back into first.
It would definitely mix things up.
It makes racecraft so much better. It makes strategy so much better.
You know what it would, you know who it would actually help?
The midfield guys.
The midfield guys.
It makes the midfield guys so much more
because they may be staying almost the same position, right?
Right.
Okay, well, I finished 10th, so I start 10th or 11th, right?
Yeah.
And so you're kind of staying that.
You have a couple of those guys that can put up a fight and be a real pain in the ass.
Yeah. So then you're having Max trying to come through a field on Alonso who won't give up the position.
Yeah.
You know,
or defend like a lead.
Or his own teammate who who finished the sprint race, you know, who then now is battling for the lead or something. Yeah, I think it could be interesting.
Maybe not every weekend, but I think for sure throw it in there like a handful of weekends, or make every sprint race that. Like, cool, you qualify for the sprint race. Max started you qualified P1, he's starting P20.
Yeah,
I think that'd be sick.
It would be interesting.
And I mean, I get it. I know they're never going to do that for the actual race. So do that for only the sprint races.
Okay, so maybe
only do it only for the sprints.
Okay,
and then it makes the racing. If you happen to be at a race or just watching, or you're at the race, it gives you like, because so many guys are like gonna go for it even more, because now the midfield's like, shit, dude, I gotta hang on for 20 laps. It's a lot that easier, or 15 laps. It's a lot easier to do that than hold on for 70 or 60 or whatever track they're at, right?
Yeah.
So they can actually get points now too if they put up a fight. Like, hey, I might be pushing it, but I can push it for 3 laps. Well, to get that point versus trying to push it for 20 laps.
Yeah, it could be interesting.
I think we talked about most of it. Probably race predictions. I mean, Texas, I think we kind of dabbled on it. Red Bulls on paper should dominate. They've won there almost every year for the last like 3 years.
They've won almost every single race but one.
Yeah. So I think if Red Bull's not 1-2 this weekend, Checo fucked up again.
By Checo?
Probably. Yeah. I think McLaren should be pretty racy on that track too. They kind of have a good hybrid car, like a good fast car, but also a good tight car too.
They're really stepping it up right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they were kind of nowhere to be seen mid part of the season, and now they've developed the shit out of the car and they're crushing. And their strategy's been good. Their qualifying's been good. Like they're on point right now.
And there's nothing against Oscar. I definitely believe though, like, and we get it. The car has a lot to do with it, but like everybody's hyping up Oscar, and then he pulled the shit he did, which I'm not. That's a technicality, and I totally support the technicality on why he pulled the rug out from Alpine and then went to McLaren.
Yeah,
like do what you got to do. So I think Oscar is definitely living up to his reputation now, which is good to see. And I think it's feeding Lando a little bit too. Like Lando's not just kind of being the lone wolf over there. Now he's like, oh shit, like I gotta work a little bit. It's
forcing him to step up his game too, because I think he was getting so comfortable just being the lead driver.
Yeah.
And I think it's just kind of like now he's like, oh shit, I'm not necessarily favorite and favored. They're gonna even let Oscar keep his place. So
well, the other thing too is I'd say is like, okay, Daniel comes in, like, okay, throw Oscar in Daniel's car. Are the results the exact same for Oscar as they are for Daniel? That's what I'm curious to see. Like up until that point, the only driver for McLaren was Lando. So Lando knew that car going forward. So is Daniel was obviously dealt the shit car. He got the one win, but then he had a shit car the rest of the time.
So here's kind of a interesting, maybe hot take. Let's think about this comparison.
You know how we feel about it.
I just thought about it right now as we were talking about it. So especially due to the controversial way that Oscar got his seat in McLaren instead of Alpine. Now we're starting to see a little bit of, I won't say complete favoritism, and honestly, it's not necessarily comparable, but it makes me think about Max and Daniel when Max first came in, and then all of a sudden he started getting all this preferential treatment, and they started, and now it's like, well, what if they're starting to do that with Oscar?
McLaren saw what happened with Max and like, fuck, if we do this same thing.
And then unfortunately, like Lando's kind of like DR in this position where he's really good. He's really charismatic. Everybody likes him.
Yeah.
But they're starting to develop Oscar into taking over that main role.
Yeah, that's a pretty wild one. But it's in the very, very like conceiving stages. It's super early. It's super early to make this take. But this is a ballsy take, right? So Lando, and I think Lando will be I think McLaren will be a little bit more diplomatic about it. Not so much Red Bull was. They probably saw like Red Bull. God, that was dick move. Like, we'll just casually take care of Oscar, casually pat him on the back.
Yeah.
Lando, you need to really push it, buddy. And they're going to be like the kind of good parent, bad parent. Like Red Bull was the bad parent. Like, hey, you suck. Get your life together.
Yeah, like, nah,
they're going to be like,
the fact that they're doing this and all.
The coach's son. And then you got mom over here. Like, oh, it's okay, honey. Even though Jimmy's still my favorite. It's okay. I'm here rubbing your back.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that's a pretty wild one. But
I think obviously we won't know for maybe another couple seasons. But.
Yeah, I could see it though, because Lando they both extended their contracts for like fucking 3 years or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Oscar re-upped his contract and they weren't even winning yet. And I was like mind blown by that. I'm like, are you an idiot? But they probably I bet you Zach pulled him in his office and said, all right, Jimmy, listen here. All right, Oski.
Yeah. We're
gonna take good care of you, bud.
Yeah.
I wonder when he gets like when it's under review. I know they get first and final refusal, but also what would be sick about they shaft Lando and Lando goes to Red Bull. Because Lando's capable of wheeling the shit out of any car, I think. But Lando's only, like I said, only driven a McLaren. So like when Daniel got there, yeah, he has all this other car experience, but Lando was so used to he can make it work and get fair results. And DR was like, dude, this thing's so far gone, like you can't fix it. And so like it kind of the same thing with like George driving a shitbox. Like, is Lando so used to driving that car, and is he really that good somewhere else? Is he only good with that style? I don't know. Like, throw him next to Max, and like Max is very front wheel heavy. So like, can he drive the same way? Like, very interesting stuff. That definitely was a tangent to race predictions, but we were talking about McLaren should do good. I think McLaren. I don't know. I top 5 if I had to predict top 5. Red Bull, McLaren, I'll take.
I think Leclerc maybe could get.
I think Ferrari could be in there.
I'm really bummed that Sainz didn't actually get a race Sunday.
Sainz shafted a lot of people in fantasy.
Fucked my fantasy. I had 2 times, so I think I got -2 times.
Dude, I remember. Sean texted me. He said he killed it on fantasy, and he was like, "Dude, I smashed it." He's like, blah blah blah. He's like, "This guy, who's this guy?" I'm like, I don't know who the Alaskan is.
Dude, the Alaskan
stallion.
Nobody knows.
Whatever you are.
So I was set to take the lead.
I thought you were in the lead.
Or I did. I took the lead previous race. And then all of a sudden,
like the Alaskan came out of nowhere. Now he's in the top 2.
I look and I'm second, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why am I second? I was like 100 points in the lead, and then I was like in second by fucking over 100 points to the Alaskan. We had a late entry into the league.
Dude, I was second in points for last weekend.
Yeah, because Carlos really
ruined everybody.
Seriously, I think I had like -32 points from him for the race.
Top 5 right now, so I'm pretty stoked on that. Out of 36,
but you know what? The Alaskan,
37.
My saving grace was the Alaskan also had Carlos Sainz on a 2-time multiplayer.
Who's Roscoe's mom? We're gonna send you a shirt.
Roscoe's mom is our boy
Jordan.
Yeah.
No, he's Roscoe. I thought he was Roscoe's dog food budget.
Oh, maybe he is. Oh, wait. Is it Roscoe? Yeah.
Roscoe's mom. Who's Roscoe's mom? Shoot us a DM and we'll send you a shirt.
Roscoe's mom is one of my clients.
DM one of us. We'll send you a shirt. That's unisex or whatever. So you might have to turn into a name. Yeah, turn into. That's just I don't know why that one caught my name.
Because she likes Lewis, right? So that means she would be married to Lewis.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
maybe I won't do that.
Yep, we're sending her a shirt.
Yeah, send us your address.
And she'll actually like it because she's been sick this week.
Yeah. Let me know your size. Or if you want it bigger, I can send you a bigger one so you can crop it. I don't know how people wear your shirts these days. Let's do another.
I'm still in the lead now. I overtook the Alaskan.
Stop bragging, asshole.
I got to do it while I can, man.
Who does not give you wings? I like that name too. If you want a shirt, send us a DM.
Does not give you wings.
Yeah, does not give you wings.
Send us. I don't know who that.
But I like Red Bull, so that's kind of a slap in the face. But anyway,
he just picked a Lewis fan and
an anti-Red Bull fan.
Anti-Red Bull.
This is just communism right now.
What is happening with you?
Oh,
Kill him with kindness.
Your car Toto is really good too.
That one is good.
Okay. So if you don't respond, you don't get a shirt and I'm giving them away.
Yeah.
You have till the end of the race weekend.
I better post this right now.
That's a long time. It's Monday. You have a whole week to collect your prize. Cool. I think that's all.
Yep. Perfect, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We love you. Smash that fucking like button. Subscribe to the channel.
You get canceled because we dropped too many F-bombs.
I don't give a shit. I do give a shit. Please don't cancel us.
Don't report us.
Don't report us. Well, we're on mature. We're rated M for mature.
Are we?
No, but we're not rated not for children.
You need to put this on educational so we can get more views. We're educating some
people.
This is
news. This is news. We talked to you about
this isn't any worse than Saturday Night Live.
Maybe just not as funny. I hate to say it. I like to be funny.
Cut the tape. Cut. I'm going home.
Bye, y'all.
Collect your prizes. Live from the paddock.